All right, so here we go, guys. In case you guys don't know, my husband, that is Rick Moffat over there on the bottom half. That is me up there at the top. And we are the owners of Raw Dog Food and Company, where your pet's health is our business. And we love this business because we see so many exciting things happening for dogs. If you don't know what our motto is friends. Don't let friends feed kibble. No, we do not. Listen, if you want to be a raw feeding expert in a snap. It's not that hard. It really isn't. And tonight we're going to touch on a few things for our new feeders. One is how to calculate the food that you need, how to store it, thaw it, weigh it, when and how to rotate your proteins, what to order, pray or barf, and then what to expect during the transition and the detox, okay? So that's what we're going to be going through tonight. And if you have to get off the webinar early, I want to point out that these are all the places that you guys can go to get more information about raw feeding. On my website, go to the Getting Started page. Go to the Busting the Myths page. You can listen to my Raw Dog Food Truth podcast. All of those podcasts up to now are listed on the website as well, the Bark blog. And then for those of you that have Facebook, I know a lot of people are jumping off Facebook these days, but you can absolutely learn a lot on our Facebook page, Raw Dog Food and Company. There are 3 other people who have names just like ours. One is in the UK. Make sure you get on our page. We do a lot of education on there as well, okay? So just remember that you can always go there and get more information. All right. What are the benefits of raw? I mean, I think most of you guys know if you've done your homework, but you know what? Raw is just in the form that nature intended for our animals. Therefore, it is more bioavailable. That means they can uptake all the nutrients, all the vitamins, all the minerals, all the trace minerals, and utilize them. And therefore, their poops are consistent and smaller because they're not just pooping out filler and all those other synthetic things that are in kibble. It reduces allergies and itching. Why is that? It's a whole podcast in itself. It's a whole webinar in itself. But the starch and the carbs that are in kibble, which are upwards of 40%, feed the bad bacteria. Bad bacteria causes all sorts of problems and allergies and skin problems in the dog's body. So once you take that out of that, once you start feeding raw, it's naturally going to improve the skin and the coat. There's no more synthetic vitamins and minerals. There are none in our food. Zero, zip, nada. Okay. I would say we have the most pure, naked, raw dog food there is. If you look out there, there are some other companies. There are some raw dog food companies that will really promote all of their additives, all of their supplements, all of the things that they're adding into the raw food. Here's what we believe. You, as a pet parent, should be able to decide what works best for your dog. And if you are buying a food that has supplements in it, that has a bunch of stuff in it, you can't take that out, but you can certainly add it in. Okay, so ours is pure, no fillers, no preservatives, and no HPP, folks. No HPP. You're going to see that because why? Well, because there's a lot of fear in the marketplace, fear of bacteria and salmonella. So what do? They high pressure pasteurize the raw food. When you do that, you are killing all of the good stuff that was in there in the first place. So now you're just paying a lot of money for raw food that, granted, doesn't have any starch, doesn't have any, the stuff that the kibble has. But the reason that we do the raw the way that we do it is because of all of the vitamins, minerals, trace minerals that the raw food has. All right. So these are just some of the benefits of the raw diet. And I just got to tell you that I got this email last night from one of my customers. And David said this. He said, I have something that you can add to your stories on why the raw dog food diet from your company is superior. He said, I always leave the packaged raw food for Callie, his dog, when she has to be boarded, basically for the convenience of the guy she stays with. He said, we returned last weekend and we didn't have any of her regular food thawed, so I continued to feed the other food. Her poops were smelly, they were messy. Her behavior was like a hyperactive child. Once I switched her food back to normal, she returned to her normal, relatively calm behavior. And he says, I use the word relatively because she is a border collie. And she says, he said, I love your company. All raw dog food isn't equal. Thank you so much, David. I didn't solicit that. I was so shocked and thrilled, obviously, when he sent that my way last night. So that's just a little bit about raw dog food. So when you're out there looking around, that's what you want to look for. Now, I want to say, what can pure raw dog food do with all the vitamins, minerals, no starches, no additives? Well, it can change your dog's life, not only from a behavioral, but I want you to take a look at these two dogs. Two of our clients. This first dog is Layla. She was a rescue dog who was surrendered by her family because they just could not get her allergies under control. I will tell you that her foster mom had her on a different raw dog food. It was a commercial raw dog food, and she wasn't healing. Once she went on a pure raw like ours, you can see Layla's skin. Her hair started growing back. She looks fabulous. Same thing for the other dog, whose genitals were just incredibly swollen. You can see all of the red rash. His hair's falling out. Was being fed a chicken and rice diet. Not a good diet at all. I don't care if it wasn't cooked. Chicken and rice, that's it. Probably not going to be a good thing for your dog. So real raw does work. So let's start off by saying, if you're coming in for the first time, you're thinking about becoming, a real raw pet family, you got to know how to calculate your food requirements. Well, the easiest thing to do is you can do this. You can go to my website and you can go to the how much to feed page, and you look up there and you say, what is the weight of my dog? The weight of my dog is 25 pounds. That means if I go over that, my dog is going to eat 10 ounces a day, not a meal, 10 ounces a day. Now, our chart, our feeding guideline is based on 2.5% of the dog's weight. And what we want to base that on is the best dog's weight. So my neighbor down the street has a Great Pyrenees, and she texted me today and she said, hey, we got to get Walter's weight down. He weighs, 127 right now. I need him to weigh 120. How much should I feed him? So what I did was I calculated 2% of his optimal body weight, which was 120 pounds. Now, where people get this wrong, when you are calculating with a calculator, if I were to take, let me just say this, 20 pounds, and I'm going to say times 2.5%, I need to convert that over to ounces. So then I say times 16, and that gives me 8. So make sure that you remember that last step. Take your dog's weight, multiply times 2.5% times 16. That will give you how many ounces you need for every day. Okay, and again, let me preface this by saying this is where we start. If your dog starts showing ribs, then your dog may be a fast metabolizer. He may be getting a lot more exercise. So yes, can you go up? Absolutely. We never want to say, well, this chart said I couldn't feed more than this amount. Well, no, you got to watch your dog's body, okay? But I want you guys to take note. Again, this is on the site as well. These are what raw-fed dogs' bodies should look like. If you look at the ideal weight, the waist is visible behind the ribs. The abdominal tuck rises above the ribs, okay? And there's a thin layer of fat over the ribs. So the ribs and the spine can be felt, but they cannot be seen. There's a fine line here, guys, between ideal and overweight. And I think we've all seen these dogs who are obese. We have gotten used to seeing obese dogs, and kibble does a great job of continuing that overweight in dogs. But I have many people that will call me and they will say, I think my dog's too skinny, or they'll bring him to the stop and they will say, will you look at my dog? Right, Neely? We just had this here recently. And so they brought their dog. They said, would you look at my dog? My vet has said that my dog needs to gain weight. And I looked at the dog and I said, from my standpoint, this dog is slightly overweight. This dog needs to probably cut back a couple of ounces in his daily requirement. And I said, but Neely's on her way. So let's not tell Neely what I said. Let's see what Neely says. And Neely, you said the exact same thing. You said this
same thing.
Yeah. You said this dog in reality needs to drop some weight. And I would tell you pet parents this. Thinner dogs live longer. Dogs that fast once a week are healthier. So are people for that matter. But when a dog does not want to eat every single meal that you're feeding them, I have to look at a couple of things. Number one, are you overfeeding? Is he just not hungry? When it gets warm outside, dogs eat less. If they're satiated, they're going to self-regulate. So if they miss one meal, don't freak out and take them to the vet, guys. If they don't eat for a week, maybe that is cause for concern. But dogs do not have to eat every meal. So before we freak out and that stress goes over to our dogs, let's step back and wait a bit, okay? They don't have to eat every meal, and you may be overfeeding. All right? All right. Very good. All right, thawing. Listen, it says right on our new feeders email, when you're thawing this food out in the refrigerator, you got to put it in some Tupperware or a glass container or something, because these bags will leak, okay? And you don't want that leaking all over your refrigerator. Now, I want to clear something up. Many people say it's so bloody or it's leaking blood. You guys, listen. The animal's blood is drained before they are harvested. And what you are really seeing is the animal protein, and it's frozen, and when it thaws out, the cells rupture and you've got this, reddish color, mostly water. So I want you kind of to not freak out too much about that, but I also want you to know that that stuff is very, very nutritious, and go ahead and let your dog lick it up. Okay?
Absolutely. Mine
Isn't
will
it?
fight over it.
Right. So it's a lot of moisture, and it's great stuff. So let them have that bowl of the red stuff. We call it the good stuff. But yeah, Asta does the same thing. When you are storing, make sure you're storing it in the freezer. In the freezer, okay? And you will know how much food you need to take out if you calculate your daily needs. So let me just say this real quick. Here's how you do it. If you know that your dog's going to eat 8 ounces a day, all right? So 8 ounces a day. And if you want to buy just enough to get you through every delivery period, then what you're going to do is say 8 ounces times 15 equals 120 ounces. Divide that by 16 because that's a pound. And now you know that you need 7.5 pounds to get you through 2 weeks, or 15 pounds of food to get you through an entire month. Okay? All of our chubs, except for our bulk packaging, are 2 pounds, unless specified as 1 pound, and those are typically in just some of the organs that we carry. But so if you know that your dog is going to eat 8 ounces a day and the chub is 32 ounces, you know that you've got 4 feedings. Many people text me and say, Dee Dee, how long is this food good for in the refrigerator once it's thawed? Well, it all depends on how cold your refrigerator is. But we typically say 3 to 5 days. However, I know a lot of people that go 7. So you have to remember that as long as you're keeping it in the refrigerator, okay, we don't want to thaw it out. Do not thaw it out on your, sink. Don't thaw it out on your counter. Don't thaw it out in your backyard or in your garage. Okay, we got to use a little common sense here, guys. We're going to thaw it out in the refrigerator. We're going to store the rest of it in the freezer. And how long does it last in the refrigerator is going to depend on how cold your refrigerator is. But you need to get your nose familiar with what does raw smell like and what does rotten food smell like. And Neely, would you just comment for a second on, I know one thing that you do, Neely, is you challenge your dog's immune system, right?
Right.
So talk a little bit about, all right, what happens if the food is slightly, it's at the end of its, 5-7 days. What do? Do you throw it away?
No, I don't worry about it because a challenged immune system is a healthy immune system. If it doesn't have anything to do, it's like working a muscle. If you don't work it, it gets weak and flaccid. So if you mildly challenge the immune system, notice I say mildly and don't bombard it with chemicals and all that other stuff. But as far as bugs and bacteria and all that kind of stuff is concerned, once your dog is settled in and on raw diet and poops are good and all that, then the pH in the gut is settled in and should be good. So it's not going to make any difference what you give them. They're going to be able to handle it. And dogs in the wild are scavengers. They eat putrid, rotting stuff all the time, and they're fine. I'm not suggesting you do that, but if if it's turning a little brown or starting to have a little funk or a little slime or something like that, I don't worry about it. I feed it. I have the worst safe handling practices on the planet, I think, and I think my dogs are probably better off for it. They've never been sick. I've never been sick. I'm a vegan and I I don't really worry about that, and the dogs do totally fine.
Yeah, and I just, on that note, I want to remind you guys that we don't make this in our garage, okay? This food is manufactured in facilities where the FDA and USDA frequent often, okay? It is frozen as soon as it is bagged. It stays frozen in the transport, not only to us, but to you in our frozen trucks. And as Neely said, we do not want a sterile environment. I'm reading a great book right now, and I'll have to get the name of that, but it basically talks about how the dog's immune system were so much better when they were not domesticated like they are today, that their immune system was great when they were out there with the bugs and the other dogs that had, issues. And what we have done is we've become this ultra, oh my gosh, I've got to, everything's got to be so clean. There can't be any bacteria, that um, we are really compromising our immune system. So they've got to have their immune system challenged. So some of you that are really afraid of raw, I think that it would probably just amaze you if you Googled about the recalls that have happened, and a lot more of the recalls have happened with your kibble food, that has, omega 3s like fish oil and salmon oil and other oils added to it, and then it sits on a hot dock, and those go rancid. If you're buying gigantic bags, you got to get through those bags pretty darn quick before that stuff goes rancid. And when and how to rotate proteins? This is another question that I get quite often. And here is what I want to say about that. As soon as possible. Okay, so people say, well, I'm going to get my dog established on, let's just take a beef blend or a Wolfram Plus. And what I mean by getting them established is I'm talking about bowel tolerance. So we've gotten the dog's gut introduced to raw. We're changing the alkaline gut into an acidic gut on the raw. And maybe, yes, we might have a few digestive issues such as throwing up. We might have some loose stools, but that will pass. That will pass if you will stick with it. And Neely's great at working with you guys on this. And you can always call me as well. But basically, if you're introducing the raw, you can follow my transition method that is on the website, or you can just go cold turkey. And Neely's method is, she would say, drop the kibble, go cold turkey, deal with it for 3 or 4 days. And mine is from a more practical standpoint, because I know that there are people who answered that they were 8 or 9 fearful of the raw. And when they see that their dog throws up or they have diarrhea, they quickly run to the vet. The vet says, get off the raw. They get off the raw, and we're off to the races for an immune compromised dog and other issues because they get back on the kibble. So, but when should you rotate proteins, and how do you do that? As soon as, I would say this, you got to have at least three different proteins, you guys. And what I mean by that is beef, chicken, turkey, lamb, duck, sheep. There's all types of, did I miss one? I know there's, we don't have the actual buffalo meat, but if you find that, great. We do have bison heart, which is part of the protein for dogs. But you want to rotate 3. You got to find 3 that your dog is jazzed about. Some dogs don't like duck. Some dogs don't like lamb. Some dogs don't like turkey. But I guarantee you, you can find 3 proteins that your dog likes. How often you rotate proteins is totally up to you and your dog and your finances and your lifestyle. But I would say this, don't go longer than 2 months on the exact same protein, like a beef. If you do 2 months, then go the next order chicken and do that for a month. Then the next month go into, a turkey, or you can do what we do. We do these. The raw boxes. Now I've got 3 different raw boxes, you guys. They might be a little pricier than if you just buy your 20-pound of turkey or 20-pound of tripe or your 20-pound of whatever and mix them up. But if you don't want to do that, you can do the raw boxes. We have 3 raw boxes. In each of those raw boxes are 5 different varieties. In the healthy variety mix, there's going to be chicken, turkey, lamb, duck, and beef. Okay. We've also got the tripe box, which all of these blends are going to have tripe in them. Now, I will say this. You're right now, we are out of rabbit. Okay, so this is why in this particular tripe box right now, you're going to see double one of those. And Neely, I know that's breaking your heart because you like
It
rabbit.
really is.
Because rabbit is a cooling protein, and what we have seen, rabbit and duck, rabbit and beef. Beef is a neutral protein. If we have dogs with allergies, if we have dogs, that are running hot, like they do when they have these allergies, like Asta is, we see an influx of people buying the rabbit. And so the plant is out of rabbit for this next ordering period. Don't worry, it will come back in. Now, we do have the whole ground rabbit. We even have the one with fur. And just real quick, let me tell you something that you won't find out there on the market in very many places, especially not in the pet food stores. Our rabbit in tripe has the brains, the whole head, and the fur of the rabbit. And if that freaks you out, I'm sorry, but it's really, really good for your dog. The other day, I was giving Asta some, and I had a full eyeball staring right back at me. It was like in the bowl. And I said, oh my gosh, take a look at this. It's an eyeball. Okay. And the brains. The brains are in there, and you just don't get that very often. Okay. So the fur has manganese in it. The eyeballs are, another part that they eat in the wild. It's great. And the brains are awesome. I have a brain surgeon friend who even likes to eat brain. And I was like, where in the world do you eat brain? Okay. But
Brain and eyeballs are great with omega-3s, help balance omega-3s and 6s as well.
yes. And Judy Jarvis, you asked me, should we be adding omega-3s? And I'm going to answer that in 2 seconds. Let me just tell you that we have another raw box. This is your prey mix for those of you that say, I cannot feed tripe because it stings and it gags me. And Neely Piazza loves the smell of tripe. I don't notice it anymore. I'm afraid I've gone nose blind after almost 18 years of feeding raw. But I tell you what, my mama in Oklahoma, she's like, I can't feed tripe. And I said, well, you're just a sissy, Mom. You're just kind of a sissy. No, I would never say that to my mother. But so I think tripe is amazing. It is one of the best things you can feed. Now, I do want to say something about omega-3s and tripe. Now, tripe is our tripe is a beef tripe. It is the stomach of the cow. It has fabulous minerals and trace minerals. It's calcium, phosphorus balance. It has omega-3s and omega-6s. But there's a lot of people that tout, and I think that maybe even I did for a while, but I really started doing the analysis and investigation on how much omega-3 is in tripe, because there's omega-6 in there as well. I personally do not use tripe for a probiotic or omega-3s. And I know a lot of you are gasping right now going, what? But I want to tell you that I think that we need more omega-3s than what just tripe can provide. And probiotics, you know what? Probiotics have to withstand the acid in the stomach. And there's one out there. It's a standard process one that we carry, and I can tell you about that a little later. But I think that tripe is amazing. A lot of our raw feeders want to know, when can I introduce tripe? Neely's going to talk about that a little bit when she talks about the puppies. But listen, you can introduce tripe anytime you want. There are no organs, there are no bones in tripe. A lot of our veteran feeders will feed tripe a couple of times a week. It's a great, it's got great stuff in it. But it will give the digestive system a little bit of a rest. And the smellier, the better. There's an article out there. It's called "The Stink on Tripe." Just Google it, read it. It's amazing. Um, but older dogs, picky dogs, they love stinky stuff. Okay, so pet parents, put your gas mask on and break out the tripe. Right, Neely?
Right.
So rotate that tripe in there. You don't always have to get tripe in your blends. Gosh, have you guys seen how many blends we have? We have some with tripe, some without tripe. So we've got a ton of it. Also, another thing that I would tell you that yes, Judy, omega threes. I think you should always add omega threes, and I think you should try to do it with whole food, and that means oily fish. Oily fish. Okay, so you can Google what are oily fish. Those are sardines, they're salmon, they're mackerel. Don't be feeding king mackerel. You know, our salmon's from Norwegian. It's the Norwegian salmon, so it's all very safe. Sardines are amazing. And I know that some people freak out and they're like, the ocean's polluted. Okay, well, look, the sardines aren't the great big fish and they're not bottom feeders. Okay, these have a lot of omega 3s in them. And I have a German Shepherd. I give her a sardine a day. Actually, this morning, you know what? She got a fish meal. She got her entire meal were 2 sardines because right now in this season where we are, we're getting ready to start having the smaller sardines. But if you guys have seen the sardines that we have, they're 6 ounces.
Big.
They're big, little baby dolphins. But they're about 6 ounces. So I gave Asta 2 of those, and that was her meal today. How do you feed those? Well, it depends on your dog. My dog likes for me to just run it under the water. She hasn't really specifically told me this, but run it under the water, and then I give it to her frozen. Some dogs would prefer that you let it thaw out. Some dogs would prefer you puree it or cut it up and put it in their food. But as a pet parent, it is your job to get some omega 3s into their body. There are some other foods out there. You guys Google this. What foods have omega 3s in them? And most of the time, you're going to get it from a human perspective. So keep that in mind when you're Googling about omega 3s. Yes, I would always add omega 3s. If you can't get your dog to eat fish, I suggest that you find the smallest bottle of calamari oil or krill oil or one of those. But if you can, get your omega 3s from fish.
Phytoplankton, you can try that. Alfalfa powder and kelp, you can try that.
What I would like to say to some of my new feeders is this, that many of you have had your dog allergy tested while you were on kibble. And I would tell you that you probably, it's going to be different once you get on raw because a lot of those they're denatured proteins. They're not the exact same thing. So if maybe this dog was allergic to fish and before, maybe 6 months on raw, you can reintroduce it. Now, along with rotation, guys, I want to tell you that I think you might want to rotate some treats as well. I don't know if you've seen our treats. Our treats are air-dried, single-sourced. They are not radiated, and they don't have anything on them for longer shelf life, okay, like you're going to find in your pet stores. We have tons of treats. We have beef trachea, we have beef lung, we have all types of treats. So treats matter. Please don't mess up a good raw diet with crappy treats. And you know what I'm talking about. Begging for bacon, milk bones. Okay, those are the worst ones, but there's still some that look really good that run your dog's health. And if your dog is very sensitive to glutens, sugars, starches, you gotta watch your treats. Okay? All right, let's go into our next category, which is what to order, Prey or Barf. First of all, what's the difference? Well, I want to tell you that there is a little bit of a difference here. the prey model typically stands for, like what you're saying, this wolf. If your dog was going to go out in the world and he was going to actually kill prey, this is what he would typically eat. He would eat mostly the animal protein, and he would eat the fur, and he would eat the brains, and he would eat the eyeballs, and he would eat the bone. But this is sort of how they came up with prey. And obviously your dog can't go kill anything. You've got to give it to him. So this is the way our blends in the prey model, and you will see them on our site that say prey model compliant. And thank you to those who call me and say, hey, you don't have the sticker on this. Is this prey model compliant? And I'll put it up there because sometimes I do miss stuff. But it's an 80-10-10. The 80 is the animal protein. The 10% is in the organs, which is 5% liver, 5% kidney or spleen. Okay, then we have approximately 10% bone. And I want to say approximately because every harvest is going to be slightly different. You are not going to get the exact same steak every time you go to the butcher. You're not going to get the exact same commercial, it's got to be 10% bone on every harvest that we do. And because every animal is different. And some people will call me and they will say, hey, this blend looks a little bit different. It might, the color might be slightly different. Your dog may like it 1 month and not like it the next. But this is typically what the approximate ratios are. And for Pete's sakes, people, dogs did not eat a absolutely exact thing every single day of their life in the wild. So if it's okay, I'm going to come back to that in a second, but I'm going to finish this. The prey does not have veggies. So here's two things that are different about barf and prey. Barf, biological all raw food, is going to have in our blends approximately 7% veggies, and the bone count is going to be substantially higher. If you look at the duck or the chicken or the turkey on the healthy variety mixes, you are going to see that the bone ratio is up to 25%. Now, which one to feed? I'm going to tell you both, and here's why. Because dogs in the wild ate some days where they ate a whole lot of bone and some days where they didn't. Some days they ate animals that had veggies in their stomachs. Some days they foraged around and got some berries. Some days they ate grasses. If you will rotate both of these models, I think you will have a very, and I'm not going to use the word balanced, but you're going to have a very good variety. You're going to have a lot of variety in your dog's food, and they're going to appreciate that. And some dogs may not like 10% bone. And I want to say approximately because every harvest is going to be slightly different. You are not going to get the exact same steak every time you go to the butcher. You're not going to get the exact same commercial, it's got to be 10% bone on every harvest that we do. And because every animal is different. And some people will call me and they will say, hey, this blend looks a little bit different. It might, the color might be slightly different. Your dog may like it 1 month and not like it the next. But this is typically what the approximate ratios are. And for Pete's sakes, people, dogs did not eat a absolutely exact thing every single day of their life in the wild. So if it's okay, I'm going to come back to that in a second, but I'm going to finish this. The prey does not have veggies. So here's two things that are different about barf and prey. Barf, biological all raw food, is going to have in our blends approximately 7% veggies, and the bone count is going to be substantially higher. If you look at the duck or the chicken or the turkey on the healthy variety mixes, you are going to see that the bone ratio is up to 25%. Now, which one to feed? I'm going to tell you both, and here's why. Because dogs in the wild ate some days where they ate a whole lot of bone and some days where they didn't. Some days they ate animals that had veggies in their stomachs. Some days they foraged around and got some berries. Some days they ate grasses. If you will rotate both of these models, I think you will have a very, and I'm not going to use the word balanced, but you're going to have a very good variety. You're going to have a lot of variety um, in your dog's food, and they're going to appreciate that. And some dogs may not like duck, so let's not buy 40 pounds of duck before we know if your dog likes duck. All right. But yes, can we have up to 25%? Here's how you're going to tell. I would never say feed a 25% bone every single day of your dog's life because your dog going to be constipated. All right. So if you rotate in and out between 25%, 13% bone, 15% bone, and 10% bone, then we're probably going to have some pretty good stools. You're going to be able to tell from your dog what they can and cannot tolerate. And if they are constipated 1 or 2 days, it is not the end of the world. You can fix it with some organic pumpkin. You can pull back on the bone. You can add some tripe. There are a lot of things that you could do. So, which one should you feed? Prey or barf? I say both. Okay? I say both. And we do rotate those in and out of Asta's diet. How often do I rotate proteins? Asta gets a different chub every single day. All right. So that is the prey versus barf. You're not going to, here, listen, you are not going to mess up your dog on the raw diet unless you feed chicken, 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 chicken every single day of your dog's doggone life. And I've said this on the last webinar. If you do not get some omega-3s in there, you don't have organs in there, and you're feeding chicken, chicken wings, chicken backs, chicken frames, chicken, 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 you're going to end up with some problems. You're going to end up with a dog who's not happy. He's not going to be vibrant. His coat's not going to look good. His eyes will not be bright. You've got to have this, at least this mixture. And again, I'm staying away from the word balance. And people call me all the time and they say, is this balanced? What you're going to have to tell me what balanced is, because nobody really knows what balanced is. When AAFCO, the guys that put their stamp of approval out there on kibble dog food and cat food, said that their blends were balanced, and then we started having major issues, cats dying, dogs having all sorts of issues, they're saying balanced. It's not balanced. Balanced is whatever they think it's supposed to be. But I can tell you that in the raw world, we are striving to have the correct ratios as close as possible throughout the week, throughout the month, over time. Okay, so I know a lot of raw feeders, they start out and they drive themselves crazy trying to calculate the exact percentages, and nature's just not that way. All right. We do have the organs and the bone in the blends. Neely, you add organs, a little more organs. I will tell you guys this, liver is the one that we want to be aware of. Liver is a vitamin A. It's fat soluble, has a lot of vitamin A in it. They cannot, excrete that. They can't get rid of it out of the body. So we don't want a vitamin A toxicity. Don't ever go over 10% of your dog's diet with liver. Okay, some people, so in our blends, we're going to have about 5%. Some people are going to add a little more liver. I don't like to play with that one. Neely, what would you say about that?
I'm not as scared about it as you tend to be, but yeah, I would say I try to do um 15-ish% organs over time, and usually that means taking one of the blends that already has organs in it, and then one day adding liver to it, one day adding kidney to it, one day adding lung to it, something like that. But that's again over time. But yeah, I wouldn't want to go over, like you said, 10% liver. But I don't have a problem with going between 5 and 10 with it.
And you can work with Neely, and she will help you out with that. Some dogs do need a little more vitamins in their diet, and the organs are your multivitamins. Now, Roy, you asked me, don't wolves eat the stomachs of their prey, providing them with the vegetable plants they have eaten? Yeah, I would say that they do, but um, here's the thing: do vegetables and fruit have some nutritional contribution? Yeah, absolutely. But dogs get their energy through the glycogenesis, which happens with the fat and the protein. So when we talk about carbs, they don't need carbs for energy. Um, they certainly don't need sugary things, and I don't think in the wild they had too much sugary things. But yes, absolutely. I think that it definitely was part of their diet. The one thing that we have to do with vegetables is we have to steam them or puree them. We have to break down that outer layer of cellulose around the plants. The dogs don't have that enzyme to be able to break that down in order to get the nutrients out. So whether you ferment those or you steam them, lightly steam them or puree them, that's something that you want to do for your dog. So, Amy, you're asking about rotation suggestions, monthly or every 6 weeks. Either one is fine. My rule is really let's don't go more than 2 to 3 months. And I say 3 months because I do have a customer who has beautiful, absolutely gorgeous Goldens, and she rotates every 3 months. Every 3 months. But here's the caveat: if your dog gets tired of it, you got to move on. And your dog will tell you, "Hey, I'm tired of that one. Can you change it up, Mama, Dad?" Okay, change it up for them. So yes, Roy, we do have a blend for cats. Cats definitely don't process plant proteins or fruits and vegetables as well as dogs do. And cats need more protein and more organs. We do have a cat blend. It's called Fat Cats. And no, I didn't name it, or I'd have been like, really, really hefty cat. Uh, oh, I forgot. We got to talk about this. What to expect when transitioning. Um, okay, there's a few things that you might see when you transition. When your dog comes off of the sugary kibble, okay, they might have some vomiting, loose stools. Excessive shedding is normal. Mucus in poop, earwax, itching, hot spots, lethargy, and certainly they are going to have less water intake and probably poop a whole lot less. So these are just some of the things that you will experience, you will see. Your dog is not sick. They've got to get those toxins out of the body the same way that you would if you went from donuts every day of your life, then you started having a salad. You're going to feel like crap. I'm just going to tell you here right now. You guys, I do want to tell you real quick about this product. This is a lactic acid yeast wafer. Now, our daughter is a vet, Amanda Joy Moffat. Some of you met her. She was on the route last week. Through her, we are able to get this veterinary approved standard process lactic acid yeast waiver. And we have the digestive enzymes and we have a whole body supplement. But here's what I want to tell you about this particular probiotic. As you all know, one of the reasons that dogs can eat a raw diet and that they can withstand the bacteria load of dead carcasses and deer poop and elk poop and, eating their own poop and licking their hiney butt is because they have a lot of acid in their stomach. Many of the probiotics that are on the market today cannot withstand the acid that will come into the stomach. This lactic acid yeast wafer is an acid-loving yeast. Will this add yeast to your pup's body? No. Think about this. Penicillin was a yeast, and it destroyed E. coli, right? So it cleared up this bacteria called E. coli. Most of your probiotics are a bacteria strain. This particular wafer is an acid yeast. Yeast strain is always far more powerful than a bacteria that you will find in yogurt or any of those other acidophilus, Lactobacillus acidophilus type things. The other thing about this particular, let me explain how this works. It goes into the stomach. It is like Pac-Man. I think most of you guys, maybe some youngsters on here don't remember Pac-Man. It will eat up all of the sugar that typically causes a lot of this yeast overgrowth. It will eat all sugars. Sucrose, fructose, lactose. It will eat all sugars, where many of your bacteria strain type of probiotics, like in yogurt, will only be able to utilize lactose or dairy products. This particular one will utilize any of them, and it will lay down a protective layer of lactic acid. Why is that important? We all of you on this call tonight have lactic acid on your skin. It is a protective layer that keeps out bad bacteria. And it eats the sugar, lays down a protective layer of lactic acid in the gut of your dog. So we like to use this one. It's very, very inexpensive, by the way. It's a good product. We have it on our website. If you go to our catalog and you go to the supplements, then you will be able to just fill out. So Dr. Joy, our daughter, just needs a little bit of information for you for regulatory purposes, and then we will get this out to you. Here's how you become a raw feeding guru. You get the raw health in a snap is basically my acronym. This is what I used out there in my leadership, my motivational leadership speaking in my book is called Snap Yes, The Art of Seeing New Achievable Possibilities in Business and Life. But I use it over here in the raw feeding world as well. And it's start today, feeding a species appropriate diet. Don't have any fear. No fear. Relax. Do your homework. It's really not that difficult. We are going to have a vet coming on soon from Vail. She's going to talk about, look, people, it's just food. It's just food. Anticipate pushback. Yeah, you're going to get some pushback from your vet. The more educated you are, the less you will be intimidated. And then P stands position your pet for the best life possible. That is raw health in a snap. All right. I want to encourage all of you to join us on Facebook. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate you attending. Watch for more webinars coming your way soon.